Welcome back, everybody, to the putback. Obviously, it's just me here today. No Nolan, no Davinsky, but that's okay. I've got some input from you guys watching the show over on Instagram, on Twitter. So if you guys do have questions, make sure you hit my links right here for any shows coming up, or you write it down in the comments, of course, and we'll be answering those questions for you today. Before we get into anything at all, make sure you guys drop a follow to Stadium Rant on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We've got all the best sports media coming to you guys, articles, shows like this on every sport you could imagine or could ever want. So make sure you guys check that out. Cop some merch on the website. And yeah, make sure you follow Stadium Rant, bringing you guys the best sports coverage. Today, we're going to do the top 10 NBA players of all time, my list. This is a list that changes almost every week. It's tough to, put one guy over another when they've got such good resumes. But that's what we're going to be going over today. We've got a lot of stuff that's coming, as I said, from the viewers who had some questions. Thank you guys for reaching out, and make sure, again, to put in the comments if you've got anything you want me to talk about, if you've got any questions, anything like that, and I'll cover that as well. The first thing we're going to get right into, obviously, the great Derrick Rose has just announced his retirement the other day. Maybe unexpected for a lot of people. I wrote an article about this just the other day, talking about at his age at the moment, is he still a guy that teams want on their roster, filling up one of his roster spots? And maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but at the end of the day, now he has called it a career, and what a career it was. I believe over 16 seasons, obviously burst onto the scene, number one pick out of Chicago, drafted to the Bulls, rookie of the year, absolutely electrifying player. He was, going to be the next best thing. Obviously, tragedy struck in those 2012 playoffs against the 76ers in game two when he was still in the game in the fourth quarter. A lot of people, have mixed feelings about Tom Thibodeau's decision to keep him in the game at the time. But of course, he tore his ACL. He came back the next season, had hurt his knee, was ruled out for a long time, and unfortunately, he was never quite the same again. But his MVP season in 2011, the youngest MVP ever, will always be remembered as one of the most inspirational and exciting seasons that our generation at least has seen. So congratulations on a fantastic career to Derrick Rose. But unfortunately, it is over now. The question is now, is he going to make the Hall of Fame? And it really depends. When you look at the Basketball Hall of Fame, it's one of the easiest sports Hall of Fames to get into. And so for Derrick Rose, I would imagine he probably does get in eventually. I would say probably not first ballot. Obviously, he's got about a 10.5% Hall of Fame probability right now. So I would imagine, a couple of years down the line as a weaker class, something like that, he manages to, sneak his way in there. He's got his MVP, obviously, three-time All-Star. It's a pretty solid resume, especially when you look at some of the guys that have made the Basketball Hall of Fame, some of those 60s, 70s guys. So I think just for his story, for everything he's contributed to basketball, to the NBA, he does deserve to make it eventually, but I would say probably not first ballot. He would be the only MVP ever to not make it, so I would imagine, he finds his way in there, no doubt about that. But now we're going to move straight on to our first subjects, the top 10 NBA players of all time. Like I said, this is a list that changes frequently. It's normally the 10 that are in the 10 stay the same, but the order changes around. But I'm just going to go off what I've got currently. So at number 10, I have Wilt the Still Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain obviously has a lot of NBA records. His 100-point game, his 50.2 points per game in a season, his 48.5 minutes per game in a season. Some absolutely unbreakable records from Wilt. So he only sits at number 10. He's only a two-time champion in his 13-year career. Obviously, Bill Russell and the Celtics had a lot to do with that. Absolutely stacked team in a league where there wasn't many teams in the league. So that's what pushes Wilt down to 10. He's only a two-time champion, a four-time MVP, and a 12-time All-Star. Obviously, a fantastic resume. He's got all those legendary numbers. This man averaged 37.6 points per game as a rookie, which is just ridiculous. He came into the league and it was his from the start. And if he had played, in today's game, who knows what type of player he would be. It's the question with all of the older players. But number 10, I have Wilt Chamberlain. And number 9, let me pull it up here. Number 9, I have Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant player in NBA history. What that guy, you just give him the ball on the post. He's going to score. He's going to get fouled. If Shaq could shoot free throws, let me tell you, he would be top 5, maybe top 3 of all time. Unfortunately, that's kind of what held him back. But nonetheless, he was absolutely dominant. A full-time champion, one-time MVP, only one time. Obviously, he is very vocal about the fact that he should have been an MVP more than once. Steve Nash is a casualty of those talks usually. But like I said, a fantastic defensive player, averaged 3 blocks plus multiple seasons, a great offensive player, as we all know. And yeah, there's not too much more to say. There's, again, it changes. I have Kobe Bryant at number 8. Kobe Bryant, obviously a 5-time champion over Shaq with 4. The two were one of, if not the greatest duo in NBA history. Kobe just gets the nod. 1, because of that championship. And 2, just his play style. It's a more well-rounded thing. He was an excellent defender for his whole career, almost until he was about 35 years old. And then we know what he was like on offense, that Mamba mentality. He was never the most efficient shooter, especially not from the three-point line, but he got the job done. He was clutch, and he led the league in points per game a couple of times in an era where scoring was huge. There was a lot of scoring going on, and he was arguably the best at it. So Kobe goes at number 8. A lot of people, it's been a huge topic of conversation for some reason recently that Kobe Bryant is not a top 10 player of all time. To not have him in the top 10 at all, I think, is a little bit disgusting, frankly, because his game is so similar to Jordan. So to say he's not even top 10 when people have MJ at 1 is very, very confusing to me. But I've got him at 8. I think he sits nicely there in that realm. And number 7 is Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, absolute, just a sound player. The most consistent player of all time, in my opinion. Another 5-time champion alongside Kobe, 2-time MVP, which again gives him a slight nod on personal accolades. But just always a winning player. He was always in that San Antonio system. He came into the league, was probably the greatest defensive rookie of all time. Easily, in my opinion, the greatest defensive player to never win Defensive Player of the Year. It was snubbed many times. But again, you can't fault the man's stats. You look at his stats, they're right up there with the best. Offensively, he was always a 20 and 10 plus guy. So there's a model of consistency when it comes to Tim Duncan that can't be matched, and that's why he sits at number 7 on the list. So number 6 is when things get interesting. Larry Bird sits at number 6. Obviously, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson is a great debate, a great rivalry in those 80s NBA basketball. Larry sits at number 6, a 3-time MVP, 3-time champion. Of course, he won his 3 MVPs in a row, which has only been done twice, I believe. So Larry Bird sits at number 6, one of the greatest trash talkers of all time, one of the greatest shooters of all time. We've all heard, the legendary stories of Larry Bird talking in the locker rooms, in the game. He'd come up to you in the game, tell you what he's going to do, and still do it. There's nothing you can do about it. So just for the aura that Larry Bird brings, he's going to sit at number 6. He went into a 3-point contest, and told everyone to get ready for second place. He's kept his warm-up jacket on the whole time and won by a mile. So it's a legend of Larry Bird that comes with the name. So everybody that's just tuning in now, welcome. Make sure you guys drop some comments. Anything you guys want me to talk about, any questions you have, any debates, because that's what we're doing this episode. I'm just going to go off what you guys want after this top 10 is over. So number 5 is Magic Johnson. Like I said, the Magic versus Bird era rivalry was one of the best, probably the best, most iconic of all time. Magic Johnson was like Wilt, like Tim Duncan, came into the league as a rookie and was just exciting, just brilliant. Obviously, he won finals MVP as a rookie. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar went out in those finals. And Magic Johnson, the point guard, played center in Game 6, hit the skyhook, the Kareem skyhook for the game, for the championship. And there's moments like that puts him this high. He's got another guy that's got a legend about him. 5-time champion, a couple of VPs to his name as well. Arguably the greatest passer of all time. Obviously, he doesn't have the most assists of all time. He does, probably have the most flashy assists of all time. Those Showtime Lakers were always fun to watch. They were the best of the best. And that's because of Magic Johnson, who was running that offense. And obviously, he was a great defender. He was 6'9" for a point guard. It doesn't get much better than that, especially at the time in the 1980s. That was a big thing for the NBA to have a guy like Magic that could run the point, it really expanded the NBA globally. He was one of the first guys that really pushed the worldwide agenda of the NBA with his elite level playmaking and just the fun that he had on the basketball court. So yeah, Magic Johnson, he's going to sit at number 5. Ashton, shout out to you. I will get to your question after this list real quick. Number 4, maybe a bit low. A lot of people have this guy top 3. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sits at number 3 for me. Obviously, the all-time leading point scorer in NBA history until LeBron took it over a couple years ago now. He's a 6-time MVP. So 5-time MVP, 6-time champion. One of those two. He's got all the stats, obviously, to back up all his claims to be a top 3 player of all time. And majority of people have him as the best center of all time, and for good reason. Obviously all those points records, all those MVPs. He played with Magic Johnson, and they won a couple championships together, of course. Another one of the best duos of all time, even though Kareem was a bit older in his career at that stage. So Kareem sits at number 4. Number 3, again, like I said, most people have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the best center of all time, but I've gone with Hakeem Olajuwon. In my opinion, the greatest defender of all time, the all-time leader in blocks. He's up there in steals too for a center, which is crazy. Obviously, he played in the 90s majority of his career when Michael Jordan was running the league. But the 2 years, 94, 95, that MJ wasn't there, Hakeem won the championship. So I think it's easily safe to say he was the second best player of the 90s. And in my opinion, a top 3 player of all time. Again, as good as his defense was, he had his legendary dream shake that's modeled all around the world now. And a guy like Joel Embiid, who embodies that type of move, the type of footwork to score in the paint. Hakeem started that, and it was unguardable. If you watch some Hakeem highlights, go do yourself a favor if you haven't seen some Hakeem Olajuwon highlights and you're a big man trying to play basketball. That is where you need to be looking, because that man had the post on lock every time. It was incredible to watch how he so easily, it made it look so easy. Just shifted guys right by them. It didn't even look that crazy, but then you bring in the pump fakes, the jabs, all those moves, and then it just looks beautiful. So as great of a defender as Hakeem Olajuwon was, he was also an incredible offensive player. Again, the second best player of the 90s and the third best player of all time, in my opinion. Now, I'm thinking I must have missed someone. I did. Okay. So, my apologies. We're going to slot Steph Curry in at number 8, right behind Tim Duncan. Obviously, Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time, most three-pointers made ever. He's now a full-time champion after that 2022 championship. He's obviously a two-time MVP, including a unanimous MVP, the first in NBA history, which was absolutely well-deserved. That 2015 season, I believe it was absolutely incredible. Something that the NBA had never seen before. He's a guy that revolutionized offense, in the NBA in general. Just was absolutely brilliant. And as he's got older, he hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. That's why I've got him in this top 10. The longevity definitely plays a big factor in that, he's still here at 36, I believe 36 years old, still doing the same thing we've seen at the Olympics. He's still that guy, still one of the top, 5 players in the league, many would argue. And obviously still the greatest shooter in the league currently. The Warriors this season not looking the best on paper, but you can't rule them out just because of Steph Curry. That guy was seen in 2022. The Warriors were not favored to win the championship that year. Not at all. They weren't favored to make the finals, but they did, and it's largely down to a guy like Steph Curry. Just the attention he draws, even if he's not shooting, if he's not scoring, it makes so many opportunities for a guy like Klay Thompson, who wouldn't have half the career he's had respectfully without playing with a guy like Steph. Obviously, Draymond Green would have not had the career he's had without Steph Curry. So his influence and his greatness, it causes double teams, it causes overhelp, and it makes it easier for guys like Klay to get wide open shots, for Draymond to get wide open lanes, and obviously Klay and Draymond are great players in their own respects. But Steph Curry's greatness has leveled up both of those guys and everyone else he's ever played with dramatically. So Steph Curry slots in at number 8. So that knocks Wilt back to number 11. So currently it's Shaq, Kobe, Steph Curry, Duncan, Bird, Magic, Kareem, Hakeem. And now to the top 2. What everyone's been waiting for. It's obviously a 2-horse race. I'm sure everyone in the NBA agrees with that at the least. My number 2 is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, obviously, before LeBron James came into the league, was something we'd never seen before. The best of the best. His athleticism, his defense. His defense was even fantastic as a guard. He won Defensive Player of the Year, which is very rare for a guard, especially in those times. But obviously, it's his offense was so incredible. He has the highest points per game average for a career of all time at 30.1. And he don't even shoot threes, which adds on to that fantastic resume that he's got. Obviously, six-time champion and 6-time MVP. So yeah, it's hard to put him at number 2, but ultimately there's slight differences, and the main difference for me is longevity with LeBron and Michael Jordan. Obviously, it's not Michael Jordan's fault, but it's also not LeBron's fault. You can't take it away from LeBron James just because he's played longer. Of course, he has more points. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's that. The best ability is availability, as people love to say. So, Michael Jordan at 2, LeBron James at 1. Obviously, LeBron James doesn't have not much that needs to be said about the greatness of LeBron James. We've seen he's a multiple-time gold medal winner at the Olympics. He's a 4-time champion. He's a 4-time MVP. So greatness speaks volumes. in that regard, the most points of all time by quite a margin now, and he's still not finished. He might have another 2 years left in the tank. So yeah, he'll shoot right past 40,000. I think he's already past 40,000. So he's going to continue to grow that number and grow that lead over Kareem and everybody else. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many points he ends up with when everything's all said and done. Another record that might not be touched because the longevity of LeBron, how good he's been for so long, averaging about that 27, 7, and 7. It's something that we're not likely to see again because with how demanding NBA basketball is, it's not a lot of guys that can play 20 years, be healthy for 90% of it, and be great for all of it from their rookie season. So LeBron James sits at number 1, Michael Jordan sits at number 2. Obviously, this whole list is interchangeable, but that's what I've gone with. LeBron's always going to be number 1, but I always change between like a Magic and Bird and Duncan and Bryant sort of thing. Steph Curry is still playing, so it's kind of tough to place him. But that's what I've gone with for today. So that's done with that. If you guys have any questions about that list or any thoughts, again, just let me know. I'll go back over that. So we'll get into the questions here. I've got Ashton, my man. What is your Wembanyama career prediction? So, I assume you're asking as far as, does he finish top 10 all time sort of thing? What sort of stats? It's obviously a thing that's impossible to predict, but if I have to give an answer, he's going to be a guy that averages about that 25 points per game, praying to God that he stays healthy throughout his career. He should be averaging 25, 12, like 4 or 5 stocks a game, which is going to be incredible to watch. We've already seen in his rookie season, he gets steals, he gets blocks, he puts up those numbers. But it's gonna depend on if he can translate that to winning basketball, as to whether he finishes a top 10, top 5 player of all time. Because like Wilts, for example, great individual player. He didn't see too much success as far as winning championships goes. He won 2, so that's why he's the top 10 player of all time. He got some, and he was fantastic personally. But Wemby, obviously, he's 20 years old. So you never know they might win 10 in a row, or they might never win. So if he sticks with the Spurs, they've got a nice little youth they're building. That team's going to be a problem in a few years for sure in that Western Conference. But as far as stats go, yeah, 25 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals sort of thing. And he needs to continue to improve his 3-point shooting because obviously it's awesome that he's a threat from out there. He shot okay from 3 this season, but if he can continue to level that up, then it's going to be even better, and it's going to be exciting to see how it turns out. But I could definitely see Victor Wembanyama when it's all said and done. You could definitely see him being a top 10 player of all time. I think it'd be stupid to say he couldn't be. We've seen the raw talent that he has already. So, and then second, he said, where does Bill Russell land on my rankings? Bill Russell, right? I don't have issues with Bill Russell, but I feel like Bill Russell is a bit overrated. He's one of the best players of all time. Let's not get it twisted. He's an 11-time champion. He won 8 in a row, and he was the centerpiece of all of that. Fantastic defensive player, one of the best of all time. Unfortunately, he played in an era where a lot of stuff wasn't tracked properly, so we don't have a lot of footage. And he was 6'9". We've seen very limited footage of him playing basketball. It's not nothing spectacular, but again, in the 60s, nothing was super spectacular. So it's hard to place a guy like Bill Russell, like it's hard to place a guy like Wilts, because they played in such a different era when the level of competition wasn't nearly as what it is today. Bill Russell normally sits about 13 on my list. I'd have like Wilt at 11, KD 12, Bill Russell 13 sort of thing. Obviously one of the best, and RIP to a legend. But he doesn't sit on my top 10 as he does for a lot of people. Um, Purely, he gets top 10 nods a lot because of those championships, but it's he won an MVP one season, right? When he averaged 18 points per game and 25 rebounds, fantastic blocks. Obviously, would have been off the chart, and they were the best team in the league. So, like, yeah, he deserves MVP. That was also the same season that Oscar Robertson averaged like a 33-point triple double. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50.2 points per game. Yes, he did not win MVP when he averaged 50 points per game because Bill Russell and Elgin Baylor also averaged like 37 points per game that season. One of the greatest MVP races of all time, and it went to a guy that averaged 18 points per game. You know what I mean? So it's a toss up. There's a lot of things you could say about Bill Russell. No doubt he's one of the best of all time, but he doesn't sit in my top 10. And what does the greatest pure bucket getter, Kevin Durant, have to do to crack the top 10? Well, I like that respect, first of all. I agree. When it comes to just getting a bucket, it's Kevin Durant, it's Kobe, it's MJ. But Kevin Durant can do it on all three levels. And that's what separates him from MJ, from Kobe. You just give him the ball, he's going to score majority of the time. In a one-on-one situation, a guy's 6'10", he'll rise right up over you, he'll drive right past you, So I definitely agree with that take that he's the greatest pure bucket getter. What does he have to do to crack the top 10? Honestly, at this stage of his career, I don't know if he can. If he wins a championship with Phoenix, maybe that would be pretty crazy. If he wins another MVP, again, I don't know if he cracks the top 10 still. It's so much competition, and that Wilt's, Steph Curry, Kobe, Shaq, Tim Duncan sort of area. It's like you have to be sensational, and obviously it's kind of close with him and Steph Curry, to be honest. But being the greatest point guard of all time that Steph Curry is, I think Kevin Durant, he'd have to surpass Larry Bird to make the top 10 as the second best small forward of all time. And he only does that, in my opinion, if he wins a championship and an MVP. So yeah, that's just not likely, unfortunately for KD. So I think he'll probably when he finishes his career still be looking at that 11-12 spot. But you never know what's going to happen. But you're asking what does he have to do to crack the top 10? I'd say another championship and another MVP. At the very least, another championship, because the problem with KD has always been he can't win if he doesn't have Steph Curry on his team, and so far that's reigned true. So if he can, put that to bed, then people will probably give him a lot more respect. So yeah, thank you for your questions. Appreciate that. We'll move on to a question from our guy from Stadium, right? He wanted me to talk about Zach Lowe, and I wanted to talk about this too. ESPN just fired Zach Lowe, or let him go, effectively, because they've run out of money. He couldn't pay him. He was on a very lucrative contract. But Zach Lowe, one of the very few NBA analysts who still put out quality content, who is the best. Zach Lowe's done the best at his job. Easily one of the best out there, and ESPN let him go. It kind of just shows how NBA media, or just sports media in general, the direction it's taking. It's a lot of guys that have jobs at ESPN, at Sports Illustrated, and all those jobs that love to, talk for engagement. They like to write things that'll get them clicks, things they might not. I don't even know if they agree on them because they're so ridiculous sometimes. But they let Zach Lowe go. That speaks a lot to what ESPN is trying to say about how they want their company to look. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it at all. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'll move on though. Zach Lowe, if you need a job, you don't need a job. You'll get signed somewhere. But please reach out to me. I want a job too. All right. Ashton again. With the Joker getting his third MVP and still in the prime of his career, where does he land as of right now on your rankings, and where do you think he'll finish? Another guy, man. He's got 3 MVPs in 4 years. He's got the one championship. Um, and he's like KD. He's sitting in that, and he's in my top 15 right now, even though he's not even 30 yet, I don't believe. Or maybe he's just turned 30. Still got plenty of time to go in his career. He's still on a contending team. Hopefully that didn't cut out. But hopefully, I mean, there's definitely a chance he wins multiple more championships and MVPs. He's still in his prime, so it's unlimited where he could finish. He could finish the greatest center of all time. Quite frankly, he's something we've never seen before as far as playmaking from the center spot. His 3-point shots always just got better and better, so that shouldn't be going anywhere. His post scoring is super underrated all time. It's honestly one of the best. When he's got the ball down low, it's very difficult to stop. He's like Shaq in that regard. Obviously, he's not as dominant as Shaq. He's not going to go up and just hang off the rim. He's not athletic like that. But if he's got the ball in the post, that big body, you're not stopping him. No one's had really good success against Nikola Jokic yet, and it's because he knows how to play the game. He's an excellent playmaker, so you can't play, you can't help off him too much. If he does, he's going to find that Aaron Gordon. For the guy, he's going to find that Michael Porter Jr. He's going to find that Jamal Murray. And now he's got Russell Westbrook on his team. He's going to find Russell Westbrook on those cuts that Aaron Gordon runs too. And obviously, Russell Westbrook's not a great shooter, but Jokic knows how to bring the best out of players, much like LeBron James. So, yeah, I mean, exactly. He's in the prime of his career. He's already got 3 MVPs. Who's to say he won't get a couple more? Voter fatigue. Guys over that do the awards might be the ones to stop Jokic because they don't like to keep giving MVPs to the same guys. They like to spread it out. But sometimes you just can't argue with greatness. If the Nuggets are a top seed and Jokic is easily the best player in the league again, how do you not give him the MVP? And then he's got 4. Now he's tied with LeBron. That doesn't sound right. And that's why people don't want to give it to him. That's why they didn't give it to him the year Joel Embiid won it. And I think Joel was deserving that year. But the reason, the main reason that Jokic wouldn't have got that MVP is they didn't want him getting 3 in a row matching Larry Bird. They don't want those old records to be broken, quite frankly. So it's tough. It's tough for a guy like Jokic because he deserves it. Will he get it? Will he get enough MVPs and recognition to finish a top 10 player? Who knows? But regardless, if he never wins MVP again, even if he never wins MVP again, if he wins a championship or 2 more, yeah, he's probably top 10. He's probably top 10. I can't lie. Just a generational player. So now we got a question from our boy Rix. Shout out to you, my man. His question was about like overseas prodigies, how they're affecting sort of the political side of the NBA right now. I'll read his question. We'd love to hear some opinions on whether draft picks from anywhere but US universities are slowly becoming a threat to the political side of the league. Surely those numbers are increasing. Is it just me, or does everyone seem surprised when they are selected, like Zachary Richey? And yeah, it's. I mean, obviously, the majority of NBA fans are American. So that's why a guy from France, a guy from Serbia, a guy from Slovenia, like Luka, people are like, oh, who's that? Why is he going so high? But yeah, they're evolving, man. They're getting better and better, and they're getting picked higher and higher. And it's just because the game's gone global with guys like Steph Curry and LeBron James. They've added excitement to the league, and it's spreading, and now you see a lot of younger guys coming from overseas countries because they're inspired, and it's awesome for the league. I think it's awesome for basketball. As far as like the political side of the league, yeah, the numbers are increasing, so it's a lot less Americans getting drafted, sure, but you want the best talent in the league at the end of the day. So I think you're right. The numbers are increasing. Most people do seem surprised. Even like people were surprised at Luka. They're like, who is Luka Doncic? Third overall pick, and now he's one of the best players in the league. So yeah, I don't know how good Zachary Ricochet is going to be. I don't know how good um, Nolan Trail, like you mentioned, projected first round of next year, is going to be. But I think it's great for the game that they're coming in more and more, and it's exciting to see because they bring the guys from Europe, the guys from Australia, wherever they're coming from, they bring a certain flair to their game that you don't see in American basketball because they're coming from different countries where they have different, like play styles, and it yeah, it really mixes it up, and that's why a guy like Jokic is so revolutionary because it's like, oh, it's a big man passing the ball like that. So um, yeah, great question. Uh, Ashton had another question. Ashton said, "What do the Detroit Pistons need to do to not be the worst team in the league, basically?" And I think, quite honestly, they won't be the worst team in the league this year. I think they have a really good core. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Duren. He needs to work on his defensive, like IQ, because that's kind of what holding him back from being a good quality starting big. But offensively, he's great. Yeah, he has huge upside defensively, and he's only 20 years old, and he is jacked, man. Have you seen Jalen Duren's shoulders? But then you got Jaden Ivey, you got Asar Thompson, you just drafted Ron Holland. A lot of guys that have talent. They just need to sort it all out. Obviously, they fired Monty Williams after 1 year, which I think was a mistake. Monty Williams is a great coach, so obviously they had a disappointing season last year. They had the longest losing streak of all time, I think. So, it's easy to say they're the worst team in the league, but talent-wise, I don't think they are. Hopefully this year they can string some results together. But as far as what else they need to do, not too much. Not too much. I don't think. It's not like they're going to go out and trade for a big name. They need to just work with the timeline they've got right now, which is Cade Cunningham. He is their timeline. He is a really really great talent, and they just need to keep building around him like they're doing. Maybe still a few more years before they're a playoff team, but I like what they've got going on so far. Nothing irrational needs to be done. Obviously, they just picked up Tobias Harris in free agency, and I actually do like their pickups. Tobias Harris copped a lot of heat for being pretty bad in the playoffs with Philly this season, but Tobias Harris has always been like a quality, third offensive threat. And obviously he didn't do that this year for Philly, but he's back in Detroit. He started his career, I think, in Milwaukee and then went to Detroit. So, he's familiar with the city. So I think he'll be good for this team. Having a veteran guy to start at your 4 with those young guys, Cade, Asar, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. I like that. I like their team, quite honestly, but they probably won't be a playoff team again. So basically, how do the Detroit Pistons get better? Just keep going with what you got. Just keep building. And then the next question was, let me just pull it up. Of all the new up-and-coming players, who do you think has the most potential and why? Now, this is a tough question, honestly. There's easy answers. Victor Wembanyama. I guess Luka's not really a young player anymore, but Victor Wembanyama would be the go-to answer. But I was trying to think of someone with, that's not an obvious answer. And I like Amin Thompson. Amin Thompson out of Houston. Obviously, we haven't seen any ability to shoot the free ball from him yet. But if he can develop just a decent 3-point shot, his defensive capability is already incredible. He's athletic as anything. He can finish really well, as we've seen. I think he has potential to be a superstar in this league. but he does need to work on that offensive game, especially shooting the free ball in this day and age. He could be one of the best defensive wings in the league, and if he can shoot the free, then that's like the best role player you could possibly imagine. He's an excellent finisher. He could average. He could not even be a role player. He could be a superstar. Honestly, I wonder if someone that's not on the radar like that, because I have a lot of belief in Amen Thompson to do great things. Because his defense is already top tier. He just needs to match it offensively, and he has every chance to be great in this league and be that starting free that the Rockets really need right now. Because if you look at their team, you got Van Vliet or you got Reed Shepherd or whoever, Jalen Green, they've got a logjam of guards right now. But those two, let's say Amen Thompson and Jabari Smith Jr. and Alfred Sengun, that is an incredibly good starting five. So if he can fill that role next seasons to come, he just needs to work on that shot, and I think he can be, excellent. And then the next question was, if you had to pick a total wildcard underdog championship win, what team do you think could manage it? Now the NBA this year, it's a bit more up for grabs. The Celtics are obviously still the same team, but they're getting a bit older. So are they still the favorites? I've seen a lot of Bucks, a lot of Milwaukee Bucks, a lot of Denver Nuggets, a lot of OKC, as far as who's going to win. So there's not a lot of dark horse opportunity. But for me, I'm going to stick with what I said on the last podcast when I said the Pelicans would finish as the 2 seed in the West. I think the Pelicans qualify as a wild card or an underdog, shall I say? So I'm gonna go with New Orleans. The New Orleans Pelicans obviously traded for DeJounte Murray this past offseason. And I like their team. Unfortunately for them, they don't have a center. They drafted Missy, 16th overall. So if he has to start, Daniel Tice is there. They don't have that real good quality defensive center that they need. But the talent speaks for itself on this team. And what I'd like to see them do is put CJ McCollum in that 6-man role and start DeJounte Murray at the 1 and keep Herb Jones in that starting lineup with Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson at the 3 and 4, of course. That team's got scary defensive potential. But again, they need that defensive center to do that. Daniel Tice, not too bad defensively, but obviously they'd like an upgrade over Daniel Tice. But then, if you got CJ running your bench, you got Jose Alvarado can run the backcourt with him. It's a small backcourt, but that's still a good defensive player in Jose Alvarado. And then you got Trey Murphy coming off the bench. CJ's a good playmaker. He's going to find a guy like Trey Murphy. So I think the Pelicans are my wild card pick for a championship. I think their playoff, they have a really good playoff roster. Their regular season, I know I put them as a 2 seed, but they don't have a lot of depth. But for the playoffs, if those guys are all healthy, as Zion can stay healthy, they've got an excellent 8-9 man rotation that they can just keep, all the minutes within those guys. So I'd say to look out for them. Yeah, they could be potentially very scary. That's kind of going to do it for me. I've kind of got through all the questions I've been asked so far. If there's anyone watching right now, you got any more questions, just let me know right now. We got Ashton, he said, I did for the next pod, top 25 under 25. Yeah, that's definitely something we've talked about. We've got a lot of topics, we're just waiting until the regular season starts. So that is a good idea. I think we'll probably end up doing that as well. Top 25 under 25. But if there's no more questions from you guys, that's probably going to do it. We've got top 10 NBA players of all time list. If you guys are here, we got Shaq at the 10, Kobe at the 9, Steph at the 8, Tim Duncan 7, Larry Bird 6, Magic Johnson at 5, Kareem at 4, Hakeem at 3, Jordan at 2, LeBron at 1. If you guys want to debate anything, if you have any questions, anything you want me to explain further, you got the links right here, the Instagram, the X, the Twitter, whatever you'd like to call it, just down here. So make sure you guys hit me up on that if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Once again, make sure you guys follow Stadium Rant here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We're bringing you guys the best content, every day. Articles coming out, shows just like this. So make sure you guys show some love. We got merch up on the website. Make sure you guys go cop. Thank you. And we'll be back next week for episode 11. Hopefully we'll have a full team back. I won't have to run this all by myself. And make sure, again, tune into the show. Drop your guys' comments. Drop your guys' questions. We'll get to all of it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.